latest standoff in eastern Ladakh with China has seen many firsts. The first time in 45 years that soldiers were killed at the LAC. The first time shots were fired across the LAC in 4 decades. The first time since 1962 that tensions between India and China have been so high. The man in the hot seat has been Lieutenant General Y.K. Joshi, India's Northern Army commander. A Kargil war hero, General Joshi has overseen India's firm response to the Chinese and the subsequent disengagement in Pangong Tso. Now, for the very first time, General Joshi is detailing the disengagement process, the road ahead, and the lessons learned. He's also telling me how India and China had come close to an armed conflict on the 29th and 30th of August. He joins me for this rare interview in Ladakh. General Joshi, thank you very much for your time here on CNN News 18. First things first, sir, how's the disengagement process in Pangong Tso going?
So Shreya, the disengagement process in Pangong Tso is going on very smoothly. We started the process on the 10th of February and it was decided that we'll do the disengagement over 4 steps with the process of doing a step, verification, continuous monitoring, and then we go to the step 2. And every day the disengagement process starts in a manner wherein we have a flag meeting in the morning. Both sides discuss the day's activity, that how this disengagement will be done on a particular day. Then the activities are conducted. In the evening, post that day's activities, hotlines are exchanged between both sides, confirming both sides that they have done the activity for the particular day. And in case there are any issues, then they are resolved at the flag meeting level and the activity is resumed thereafter.
Sir, did you expect this process of disengagement to be this rapid, as it were? 10th is when the agreement is signed. By 17th, almost everything is over.
Yeah, so the Chinese have shown their sincerity, of intent or purpose in carrying out the disengagement process. And while it was agreed earlier, we started on the 10th, and they have been doing it at a very rapid pace.
Can you give us some details on what has happened, sir, on the ground?
You see, like I said, it was to be done in 4 steps. The step 1 was the disengagement of the armor and the mech forces, which happened on day 1. It happened absolutely smoothly. And on the next day, since we're monitoring the entire process using our satellites, using the UAVs, we have vantage points where we have cameras placed to see each other's activity. So on the very next day, we saw about 200 plus A vehicles. They had almost reached the Western Highway. So that is the speed which the Chinese have been disengaging. The step 2 and 3 was the North Bank and the South Bank. And the step 4 is the final disengagement, which will happen on the Razangla Rachinla on the Kailash range. So that is how it is happening. And so far it is going on very smoothly, like I said.
So let me talk about the 2 concerns that are being raised. Let's start with North Bank. The concern is India has compromised. The concern is that India has ceded land, that if our claim line is finger 8 and we've stepped back to finger 3, and this buffer zone that has been created between finger 3 and finger 8, then it's Indian territory and we are not patrolling in Indian territory only. So have we ceded land, sir?
No. A very emphatic no, actually. We have to look at it in this manner that finger 8 is a claim line. The PLA, the entire forces are going back behind finger 8. The entire infrastructure that they created, post-April last year, between finger 4 and finger 8, which was quite a lot, is being removed entirely. Be they dugouts, be they trenches, be they bunkers that they constructed, the tentage, everything will be, restored. The entire landform between finger 4 to finger 8 will be restored completely to pre-April 2020 situation. And the last and the most important point is they will not carry out any activity into our claimed area that is on the side of finger 8, be it a military activity or any other activity. So I think it's a big success. How have we ceded land in any way? You see, in our claimed areas, he has removed the entire infrastructure. He will not be carrying out any activity till such time, we have a discussion subsequently later after this process is all over, and we arrive at a new protocol and a new patrolling policy.
So this is North Bank. Let's shift to South Bank. In South Bank, the concern is that we are giving up our tactical advantage by climbing down from the Kailash range.
Okay.
Why are we doing it? What if the Chinese come and occupy it as soon as we vacate it?
So the Kailash range was occupied with a purpose. The Chinese surprised us initially. They occupied certain of our areas, like you are aware, till Finger 4 on the north bank. And the negotiations were going nowhere. We had 5 flag meetings at the co-commander level, and we were not, succeeding in any manner. He was not relenting. So then, I got instructions from my chief that we need to, gain some leverage. So 29th, 30th of August, we launched this operation, and we, occupied the entire dominating heights of Razangra Chinla on the south bank, on the north bank as well, where we were dominating the entire, PLA deployment. And this was done to, gain some success on the negotiating table,
Okay.
which we have done. So this disengagement now that is happening because of this action that we have taken, the dominating position that we have taken on the Kailash range. So once that purpose has been achieved, now we are going back to status quo ante, April 2020. So that is the purpose. And plus, it has also been assured in the 9th co-commander level flag meeting that the areas that are now being, vacated will not be occupied.
Sir, but would you say that 29th and 30th of August was a turning point in this entire standoff as far as India is concerned?
Absolutely. It was the biggest turning point in this entire, the sort of situation that was prevailing in Eastern Ladakh post 5th of May.
The Chinese had surprised India in the month of May. The PLA had come in with its tanks and troops and big guns for its annual exercise in Aksai Chin in April. Given that it was a year that the world was fighting COVID, the Indian Army had cancelled its own exercise in this area to take care of the bigger challenge at hand. Unknown to the Indians, the Chinese mobilized their assets deployed for the exercise to ingress into Indian territory in the month of May. The Indian Army paid them back the surprise on 29th and 30th of August. This is when hardy Indian troops quietly climbed the Kailash ranges in South Bank and gained a massive tactical advantage over China. In mountain warfare, he who occupies the heights dominates the battle. This was a huge pressure point for the Chinese as their crucial Moldo base was in direct line of sight of Indian troops. It is on the 29th and 30th of August that India came close to an armed conflict with China, says General Joshi.
So I'm trying to understand what changed between the 8th Co-Commander meeting and the 9th Co-Commander meeting. Till the 8th Co-Commander meeting, everything is going round in circles. Suddenly, what happens in the 9th Co-Commander meeting that the Chinese decide to disengage?
We have to understand, like I just mentioned, the first 5 co-commander level flag meeting happened pre-August 29th-30th, where he had an advantage, a tactical advantage, and we were on the back foot. Post 29th, 30th of August, we have had these 3 flag meetings, 7th, 8th, and 9th. 7th, 8th, and 9th. So in this, he was now looking for a face saver. Negotiations take time. So in these 3 flag meetings, he realized that we will not be relenting. Our message to them was absolutely clear that we will accept nothing below status quo ante April 2020, which he sort of understood, and then he relented.
So you are a Kargil hero. You've seen that war, conflict. At any point of time, did you think that this could blow up into an armed conflict as well?
Well, yes, there were situations when it could have blown up into an armed conflict. And this happened actually post we did our QPQ options, the quid pro quo options, and when we had occupied Razangra Chinla, we had the armor and the mech forces sitting on top of the Kailash ranges. That was on the 29th and 30th night. 31st, when the PLA wanted to come up, right up to the Kailash ranges, that was a time the situation was extremely tense. The Galwan had happened, red lines had been drawn. We had absolutely, been given a free hand to conduct operations the way we wanted. And at that moment, when you see the adversary's tank coming up, my tank man, the gunner sitting, and the rocket launcher and the ATGM, seeing through the telescope sights, and when they see the adversary's tank coming up into your, crosshairs, the easiest thing for him to do for what he is trained is to pull the trigger.
Correct.
That doesn't need any courage. That's no brainer. But the most difficult thing which needs courage is not to open fire, not to press the trigger. So we have to be very clear that there was a time when a war was actually averted. We were on the edge. We were absolutely on the brink. And those were very, very tense and very challenging moments for us.
So you've spent most of your life amongst these mountains where we are. You speak Mandarin. Is it clear to you why the Chinese did what they did, ban in the middle of a pandemic? And what have they achieved by the end of 9 months?
Yeah, so it's very surprising that they did what they did. But, my understanding is that over a period of time, I was a brigade commander here in 2010, 29, 10 and 11. That time we had only 2 battalions looking after the entire eastern Ladakh. And since then, we have been improving our force levels in these areas. We've been improving infrastructure in these areas. And we're drawing closer to, a clarification of the LAC at some stage. And Chinese, having realized this, probably now they are looking to shift their claims westwards and acquire more dominating heights, or want to shift the LAC westward as far as possible till we arrive at a clarification of the LAC. So that was the aim, but then he achieved nothing post this. We've gone back to status quo ante, all his forces have gone back, all the landforms being restored, and he just earned, actually, if I may say, a bad name, actually, nothing else.
So, sir, Pangong so done. What next?
The day the disengagement is complete, within 48 hours, it has been agreed by both sides that we'll have the 10th co-commander level flag meeting, wherein we will discuss the other friction areas, which are still need to be resolved. And once we sit down and talk about those through negotiations, we resolve the friction areas and then proceed ahead towards the clarification of the LAC at some stage.
The friction between India and China began in Pangong So at the north and south bank. This is where major scuffles broke out between Indian and Chinese troops as the PLA tried to block India's patrols in the month of May. Tensions spread quickly to Gogra, Hot Spring and Galwan, which also became friction points. The other 2 friction points, Demchok and Depsang, is what the army calls legacy issues since the standoff here predates May 2020. Let's understand Depsang. This is a plateau up in the north at the base of the Karakoram ranges, the only place on the Indian mainland where China and Pakistan can collude and threaten our control over the Siachen Glacier. It also provides access to China over the DS-DBO road and the strategic DBO airstrip. Since 2019, the PLA has been blocking Indian troops from going up to their traditional patrolling points, which is far short of the LAC. Therefore, the question, has India lost hundreds of square kilometers of land in Depsang?
So, Gogra, Hot Springs, are you anticipating any roadblocks as far as disengagement is concerned? Their disengagement is concerned. And what about Depsang and Demchok? Because Depsang, the Chinese are stopping our patrols, I believe. The claim also is that we've lost hundreds of kilometers of territory there. What is the status as far as Depsang and Demchok is concerned?
These areas are not volatile right now. The troops are not in contact. Depsang, coming to particularly Depsang, this predates the present situation. This is a legacy issue. And like I mentioned, 2010, when I was a brigade commander here, that is the time also Depsang was a flashpoint. Second point we must remember is that this is the area where the area of differing perception, that is their claim line and our claim line, the area is maximum. And third thing, and the final, which I sort of talked about earlier, is that here the troops are not in contact. What happens is when our patrols go, they give us a face-off. When their patrols come, we give them a face-off, and both are not allowing each other to reach their respective claim lines. So that is where the situation stands as of now. And I'm sure with the discussion that are happening subsequently, we should be able to resolve this issue as well.
Sir, can I ask you what the last 9 months have been personally for you?
Yeah, so last 9 months have been very, very challenging. There have been very tense moments. As an army commander of operational command, one looks at clear-cut directive from the bosses. And in this respect, I can say, with a lot of clarity that there was no ambiguous directive that was coming to me from my chief. In fact, he had given me a totally free hand to conduct the action as I deemed fit. Of course, I used to make plans, discuss with him, and then the plan used to roll out on the ground. But there was absolute no ambiguous, especially post Galwan, we were given a totally free hand, and that is the time when the situation was pretty tense and worrisome actually.
So, speaking about Galwan, the Indian Army never put out the number of fatalities that the Chinese had suffered. Is there a rough estimation that we have? What is a number, which will not enter the arena of speculation and know कि ये था?
So, I don't want to make an estimate. While, when the incident happened, we had our OPs sitting observing the area, and we were able to pick up a large number of, casualties which were being picked up in a stretcher and taken back. More than 60 actually. But whether they were, fatal, non-fatal, we can't say with the authority. So I will not sort of hazard a figure on that. But you're aware that recently TASS, the Russian agency, had put out a figure of 45. And I think that could be one of the figures we could look at.
Okay, but it could be more than that as well.
It could be more than that as well.
So when you look back, now, the process of disengagement is underway. When you look back, do you feel that there was possibly a lapse in India detecting China's movements and, more importantly, intentions?
I will not say it was a lapse. Every year the PLA comes on the Western Highway in the area of Khangsewar, in the area of Saidullah, in the area of Thien Shui Hai, and they carry out the exercises. And last year the same thing happened. But if we were to hazard of, a guess on his intention, yeah, that was immediately not very clear. And that got clear when, they came up to Galwan, they came up to the area of patrol point 15, 17 Alpha, and subsequently when they came on the North Bank as well. And once the intentions were clear, we were able to sort of, had a clarity on his intention. That at the time, we were able to react in the manner we wanted to react. The entire Indian Army mobilized, and we sort of got a strategic layoff to C-17 coming in, reserves were sidestepped, and then we were able to meet him, each and every place where he was coming in on the LAC. And then, of course, 29th, 30th is the time of the 29th, 30th of August when the entire, tables were turned onto the PLA. So if you look counter, 29th, 30th, we totally surprised him.
They surprised us initially,
yeah,
and we surprised them
absolutely.
On the 29th and 30th. So our counter deployment was also very rapid. But could you have ever imagined that you would have tanks at these heights? How did you manage that?
Yeah, so one would have never imagined, I spent my entire life in Ladakh, having commanded the brigade, the division, the corps here. And prior to 5th May, I would have never imagined that there will be a situation wherein this kind of mobilization will happen in Eastern Ladakh. The amount of forces, the armor, the mech, the artillery, the ammunition that we have moved so close to the LAC was absolutely unimaginable. But it's time that we renew our focus towards the northern borders. You're aware the Army headquarters has already ordered the rebalancing which will happen. And we need to now look at northern borders in that right earnest.
So in the initial days, I believe water was a massive challenge for the Indian Army. How did you overcome that?
Yeah, so water initially is a challenge, climbing up these mountains. Fetching water is a problem. So initially we got, bottled water for the troops. Subsequently, we sort of put our engineers on the job, and we were able to locate and dig, about 20 bore wells right from DBO.
In the middle of the standoff?
In the middle of the standoff. Yeah. And we got the bore wells coming in. We laid pipelines, with pipes and pumps pumping water right up to Razangna Chinla as well. And that is how we manage, And Indian Army innovates, on the feet.
Jugaad.
Yeah, Jugaad it's worked absolutely. And our boys are very good at that.
Sir, what about your boys? They've shown us what they are made of, haven't they?
The entire credit of this success, goes to the hardy soldier of the Indian Army who has never let us down, in such difficult super altitude area, freezing temperatures, going down to minus 40, and they're staying in tents to start with. Of course, then later better tents came in, and the belting was there, and the junior leaders, who with their training, with the drills that they adopted, were able to execute these plans in an absolutely, smooth manner and give us the success.
So, spending a Ladakh winter where temperatures are dipping to minus 45, minus 50 degrees, was weather, if not an equally bigger enemy or a challenge than the Chinese? How did you deal with this weather?
Weather was a big challenge. But then our troops, are very hardy, like I said, and we have a lot of experience. Our troops have served in the glacier, they served in altitude areas earlier, and we have our drills and procedures in places to, immediately sort of look at the weather. Of course, PLA was a challenge, that goes without saying.
Okay. So I'm going to ask you a question which is devoid of any nuance. And I ask you this because, people across the country ask this question very simply. Can we trust the Chinese? We are disengaging, but can we trust the Chinese? Can we afford to pull back this entire deployment we have seen and just to have, another situation like this brew up in the next 2-3 years?
Yeah, so given the fact that they broke all the agreements and did what they did, currently the trust levels are low, and we have to build up this trust again if we want to have peace. In fact, I'm reminded of a Chinese proverb, which the Chinese have been telling me all the while, which says, Yuan Chin, Puru, Chinlin, which literally means that, a relative which is far away cannot be equated to a neighbor who is very close to you. Meaning that it's better to have good relations with a neighbor than to depend on a relative who's far away. So I want to sort of throw this proverb back at the Chinese that, we can have a good neighbor, but that trust levels have to be, from the both sides. So Chinese have to do their part to develop this trust now.
But are you anticipating Chinese aggression along the LAC? Things will happen. What has to happen at Eastern Ladakh will happen. But across the LAC, sir, are there worries?
There are worries, that goes without saying. But then, like we have discussed at the Kokomada level flag meeting, the area that we are now vacating, both sides are vacating, there is an agreement that both sides will not occupy either these areas or any other areas along the LAC as well. So that understanding has been reached, but let's see how both sides follow.
And so my last question then, what is then the resolution for, the India-China relationship as far as the border is concerned? Do you see the border being demarcated at any point of time? Is that, do you think, the ultimate solution?
Yeah, that is the ultimate solution, obviously, that goes without saying. And the first step is clarification of the LAC. Till the time we have our respective perceptions of the LAC, these friction points will continue. So it's extremely, extremely important. The PM, when he first time went to China, he flagged it at all the places he visited in China that we need to go ahead and do the clarification of the LAC. Only then we can have, good relations. We can't have, friction on the border and continue with the rest of the relations in a normal manner. That no longer can happen. So we have to look at the boundary resolution finally, but to start with at least clarification of the line of actual control on the ground.
General Joshi, thank you very much for joining us here on CNN News 18. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Sharon.